A 90-meter-tall rectangle appeared on the moon, perfectly straight, utterly black. And you need to understand, it was not there the day before. The official designation for the image is LROCM144783913R. It was captured by NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, our unblinking eye circling the moon since 2009. For billions of years, the lunar surface has been a static museum of cosmic history. Every crater, every grain of dust, tells a story millions of years old. Change happens here at a geological crawl caused by the occasional meteorite impact. Not overnight. Never like this. The image was first flagged by an automated anomaly detection system at the Goddard Space Flight Center, an algorithm looking for new craters. But this was no crater. When planetary geologist Dr. Eris Thorne saw the image, he assumed it was a data error, a corrupted pixel block. He ran diagnostics for 12 straight hours. The data was clean. The orbiter was functioning perfectly. The rectangle was real. Think about that for a moment. A structure 30 stories high with perfect right angles in a region of volcanic domes known as the Marius Hills. Natural geology does not create perfect rectangles. The official explanation, released in a quiet internal memo, was a peculiar shadow formation, a trick of light caused by the low sun angle on a newly collapsed lava tube. A plausible theory, except for one detail they left out of the memo. The LRO took another pass 95 minutes later. The sun angle had changed. The shadows had moved all across the surrounding landscape. But the rectangle? It hadn't changed at all. It was still there, still perfectly black. It wasn't a shadow cast on the surface. It was an absence of surface, a hole, a doorway. And here is the part that no one has reported, until now. Initial analysis of the object's darkness showed it was absorbing over 99.8% of the light that hit it. It's a level of blackness that rivals Vantablack, one of the darkest substances ever created by humans. It's as if you are staring into a tunnel with no end. For weeks, that was the entire mystery. An impossibly dark, impossibly geometric hole on a world that should have neither. But then, a team at Caltech, running the raw data through a new signal processing filter, found something else, something hidden deep within the digital noise of the image. It wasn't just an empty void. It was emitting something, a repeating structured signal, too faint for the standard systems to detect. It was a pulse. So the question changed. It was no longer just, what is this hole? But who is inside? To answer the question, who is inside, you first have to understand the language they speak, and it isn't English, or Russian, or any human tongue. It is the language of the universe itself, mathematics. The team at Caltech, led by Dr. Lena Petrova, isolated the signal from the digital noise. It was a sequence of pulses, a simple beat, 2 pulses, then a pause, 3 pulses, pause, 5, pause, 7, 11, 13, on and on. They were prime numbers, numbers divisible only by themselves, and 1. A cosmic fingerprint of intelligence. For over 60 years, since astronomer Frank Drake first pointed a radio telescope at the stars in 1960, we've assumed this would be a first contact signal. Not a complex message, but a simple, undeniable pattern that could not be created by natural phenomena, like a pulsar or a quasar. Nature doesn't count in primes. But here's the thing. The signal was almost childishly simple. It was the cosmic equivalent of tapping on a wall to see if someone taps back. Was this a greeting, or was it a key waiting for a lock? And here is where the story turns back on itself. Back to a time of film cameras and slide rules. Back to 1971. The location of the anomaly, the Marius Hills, has been a person of interest for a long time. It was a candidate landing site for Apollo 15. Astronauts David Scott and James Irwin eventually touched down just 300 kilometers to the east at a place called Hadley Rill. They spent 3 days on the surface. The official mission logs are filled with geological surveys and rock sample data. But a recently declassified audio transcript from the mission's science backroom tells a different story. For 72 minutes during the second moonwalk, a seismometer left by the crew registered what was called asynchronous harmonic tremors. The official report calls it instrument noise. But the instruments were functioning perfectly. Nobody ever asked why the noise was focused in a single direction, pointing directly at the Marius Hills. We were right there, on the doorstep, and we saw nothing. Or perhaps we were told nothing. For decades, the data sat in an archive, a minor footnote in the grand story of Apollo. But it turns out another set of eyes was watching, and they could see what we couldn't. Between 2007 and 2009, the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, operated the Kaguya Orbiter. It was the most sophisticated lunar mapping mission of its time. On board was a lunar radar sounder on an instrument designed to peer deep beneath the moon's skin. It sent radio waves into the ground, listening for the echoes. When JAXA scientists analyzed the data from the Marius Hills, they found it: a void. Directly beneath the spot where our rectangle would later appear, the radar detected a massive, hollow space. It is a cavern estimated to be 50 kilometers long and nearly a kilometer wide. Yes, you heard that right. A 50-kilometer cave system. The original theory was a colossal, uncollapsed lava tube. A geological wonder, but that was before a 90-meter doorway opened up on its ceiling. The Caltech team now had a where. This signal was coming from inside that immense, hidden space. They went back to the raw data, filtering it in a new way. They stopped looking at the prime numbers themselves and started looking at the silence between them. They found it. Hidden beneath the prime sequence was a second, far more complex signal, a carrier wave. And encoded on that wave was not a message. It was a map, a three-dimensional blueprint of the entire cavern system. It showed branching tunnels, vast central chambers, even what appeared to be smaller geometric structures within the main void. The signal wasn't just saying, "We are here." It was giving us a tour. But every map has a place where the cartographer's knowledge ends. A blank space. This one was no different. It showed them everything except the one thing that mattered. The map detailed the entire cavern. But the source of the signal itself was a perfect spherical void within that map. A hole in the data. So the question, who is inside, was no longer the most important one. It was, what are they protecting? What are they protecting? The answer, it turns out, is nothing. You're not looking at a vault. You're looking at an engine. They aren't protecting an object. They are protecting a process. And that realization changes the entire game. The Caltech team, led by Dr. Lena Petrova, hit a wall. The map was a dead end. The spherical void in the data was impenetrable. For 3 weeks, they had nothing. But science is often about asking a better question. A physicist on the team, a specialist in thermodynamics, asked one. He didn't ask what the signal said. He asked, how much heat is it producing? Think about it. Any process from your brain thinking to a star burning generates waste heat. Information is not free. It has a physical cost. The team went back to the raw signal data from LROCM 144783913R. They looked for a thermal signature, a faint rise in background temperature. What they found was so subtle, it was almost statistically insignificant. A temperature fluctuation of just 0.001 Kelvin. But it was there, and it was constant. This wasn't the heat of a living colony. It was the hum of a machine engaged in a computation so vast it was warming the very rock around it. The map wasn't a message. It was exhaust data, a byproduct. And here's the part nobody wanted to believe. The energy required to run a computation of that scale and to broadcast it is immense. Far more than could be generated by any conceivable power source within that cavern. It made no sense, unless the cavern wasn't the source. What if it was just an antenna, a relay station, a cosmic post office, receiving a signal from somewhere unimaginably distant, and then beaming it somewhere else? The moon is the perfect place for it. No atmosphere to interfere. Tidally locked, so one side is always shielded. Geologically stable. For an interstellar network, it's prime real estate. Suddenly, old data started to look very different. Those asynchronous harmonic tremors from the Apollo 15 seismometer in 1971. The report called it instrument noise. But what if it wasn't noise? What if it was the physical vibration of a massive relay system powering up? We didn't just land near an anomaly, we may have landed in the middle of a transmission. This one theory reframed everything. The signal wasn't for us. We were just eavesdropping on someone else's conversation. The question is no longer who is inside, but who are they talking to? And this is where a rival team enters the picture. On the European Space Agency, they had their own lunar probes, their own data archives. They decided to look for something no one else had. Not a radio signal, not a thermal signature. They looked for a magnetic footprint. Using archived data from 2014, their magnetometers scanned the Marius Hills region for disturbances. They found one, a magnetic bubble contained entirely within that 50-kilometer cavern, a field that shouldn't be there. And encoded within the fluctuations of that field was something else entirely. It wasn't a map, it wasn't prime numbers, it was a log file, a record of transmissions, timestamps, data packet sizes, destination coordinates pointing to star systems we have only just named. The log file showed the relay had been active for at least 12,000 years, mostly dormant. But it powered up to full strength at very specific intervals, moments of activity. And as the ESA team scrolled back through the recent logs, their blood ran cold. The last major full-power activation before the one we see today was in July of 1971, the exact week that David Scott and James Irwin walked on the moon just 300 kilometers away. Our arrival didn't discover them. It triggered an alarm. Is not a conversation. It is a warning. And for the team at the European Space Agency, that warning echoed not through the halls of their facility, but through 12,000 years of silence. Our arrival had tripped a wire, a cosmic burglar alarm, and that changes everything. Think about what that means. You are no longer an observer. You are a participant. You are the reason the alarm went off. For Dr. Ilara Vance, the young ESA analyst who first saw the 1971 timestamp, the world shrank to the size of her screen. Her breath caught in her chest. She checked the data again. And again. The numbers didn't change. It was her. It was us. The official story, of course, is that the rival teams at Caltech and ESA began a data-sharing initiative. But internal communications obtained for this program tell a different story. It was a panicked 48-hour scramble. For 2 days, these scientists were the only people on Earth who knew that humanity had been noticed. And here's the part that was never put in any report. Dr. Lena Petrova at Caltech received an encrypted call at 3 a.m. Pasadena time. It was from the head of the ESA project. There were no pleasantries. He simply said, "We have the logbook. You have the map. We need to talk. Now." The collaboration took place under a complete communications blackout, routed through a secure military server at Ramstein Air Base. This wasn't science anymore. It was planetary security. They combined the data sets, the ESA's log file of whens and wheres, with Caltech's three-dimensional map of what. And when the two halves came together, a new picture emerged. The transmissions were not random, but they followed specific pathways targeting a small cluster of 7 star systems, a network, and the alarm triggered in July 1971 wasn't just a simple alert. According to the log, it sent out a data packet, a tiny one, just 2.7 kilobytes. It contained the Apollo 15 seismic data, our own tremors, our own heartbeat. It sent a recording of us to someone else. And for 50 years, there was no reply. The system went back to sleep until August 12, 2023. When the doorway opened, when the prime numbers began their steady, patient pulse. This wasn't a new message. It was a reply. They were answering the alarm we triggered half a century ago, and the message was simple. We see you. Come and talk. For the scientists, this was no longer an abstract puzzle. It was personal. They had children. They had homes. They looked up at the moon in the sky and saw something else. Not a dead rock, but an open line, a phone that was ringing just for us. What do you do when you learn you're not alone in the universe, but that your first introduction was you accidentally breaking a window? Dr. Petrova described it as a profound and terrifying silence. The moment the work stops and the waiting begins. The numbers are run, the data is clear. But what comes next is no longer in your hands. It's a weight that settles deep in your bones, a silent question that hangs over every sunset, every family dinner. Have we just been invited to a conversation, or an interrogation, or an interrogation? For weeks, that was the only question anyone dared to ask. The answer, it seems, is neither. The truth is far more humbling. Think about it. This relay system has been active for 12,000 years. It has broadcast across star systems while we were still painting on cave walls. It sent its last message when Apollo 15 was just 300 kilometers away. The signal we are receiving now, it was never meant for us. We are not the intended recipients. We are simply interference, a new source of noise in a very old, very quiet room. Dr. Lena Petrova's final unpublished paper on the subject frames it this way. The 90-meter rectangle is not a doorway. It's a lens. Its purpose is to focus the incredibly faint signal from its true source, deep in interstellar space. The prime numbers, the map, they are calibration patterns. The system is simply realigning itself, adjusting for a new variable in its environment. That variable is us, our satellites, our radio chatter, our city lights painting the dark side of the Earth. The machine isn't talking to us. It's trying to see around us. And here is the part that keeps the scientists awake at night. The official reports are sealed. The data is classified under national security protocols from 3 different space agencies. They are afraid of what this knowledge will do. To our religions, our economies, our sense of self, they are trying to put the genie back in the bottle. But why do we always assume we are the main characters? For millennia, we have looked to the stars and asked, are we alone? We have been asking the wrong question. The real question is, does our presence matter to anyone but us? The universe does not owe us an answer. That silence you feel when you look up at the night sky. It isn't emptiness, it's patience. The patience of geology, the patience of starlight that has traveled for 1 million years to reach your eye. The patience of a network that has operated longer than human civilization. We are a brief, brilliant flash in a vast and ancient cosmos. And now, we know someone is watching, not with malice, not with curiosity, but with the detached interest of a gardener noticing a new weed in a very old garden. So the story does not end here. It begins. It begins with a choice. We can continue to shout into the darkness, demanding to be heard, or we can learn to listen.